When referencing these two future Big Ten programs, on one side, change was certainly needed on defense. On the other side, the status quo that has been set on offense is just fine. And speaking of offense, there may be a points explosion Saturday night in Eugene.
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
When you talk about this Oregon and USC matchup, two future Big Ten programs, and I think with all due respect to UCLA and Washington, these are probably the two biggest brands on the West Coast that are going to face off and that are eventually going to join the Big Ten starting in 2024. When you look at this game between the Ducks and the Trojans, you got to talk about the move that was made this week by USC head coach Lincoln Riley. A long overdue move firing defensive coordinator Alex Grinch, who was with him when he was at the University of Oklahoma as well. This defense was bad. They were terrible last season. They brought in some new personnel, hoping to maybe give this defense a boost, but the same problems have really existed this season for the boys from Los Angeles, California. So you fire Alex Grinch and you bring in co-interim defensive coordinators Sean Nua and Brian Odom. From what I have been hearing, this Alex Grinch defensive system might have been a little bit too complex. A lot of moving parts, a lot going on in that Grinch system. It sounds like they're going to try to simplify things, maybe change a few things schematically. I think in normal weeks, I would say, yeah, absolutely, that's good. This defense is probably going to look and get better. But here's the thing about this week for USC. You are taking on the most balanced, talented offense, maybe in all of college football, in the Oregon Ducks. Oregon is just one of two teams that is in the top 10 in the country in both the rushing offense and passing offense. The only other team, the LSU Tigers. Oregon can beat you any way they choose to beat you. If you've heard that said on this channel before, is because I've said that about Michigan. The run game with their offensive line and Blake Corum, and then throwing the ball, what they've done lately with J.J. McCarthy. If you're in that same discussion on the field, you're in pretty good company, and that's exactly where the Oregon Ducks really sit right now. You look at some of these rankings right now. USC 118th in the country against the run. That's where I want to start, with the run game. It's a USC defense that even you look back to last year, and you've seen it at times in the games I've been able to peek in on this season, tackling is still a big issue. Just look at last week when USC faced the University of Washington. Look, Washington is a pass-first offense. That's where they're really, really good. Michael Penix, Roma Dunze, Jalen Polk, all those guys are fantastic. Dylan Johnson is a solid running back. I think at times he can be a good running back. But Dylan Johnson rushed for 256 yards and 4 touchdowns last week against this USC defense. He absolutely ran all over them. They made this run game, I think, maybe look better than it is. And maybe have Dylan Johnson look maybe better than he really is at the running back position. And then if you look at things for the Oregon Ducks, you've got a pretty good run game led by former Minnesota Golden Gopher Bucky Irving. Here's a stat about Bucky. 44 missed tackles forced this season. That leads all Pac-12 running backs. You combine USC's lack of ability in tackling and having their tackles broken, and then you look at what I just said about Bucky Irving and what we know about Bucky. He can break tackles. He can get into the second level. You combine him with Jordan James and a Joe Moore Award candidate for the best offensive line in college football. It spells trouble, folks, for the USC Trojans. Oh, and it doesn't help that this game is under the lights at Autzen Stadium. Not only can Oregon run the ball, they might have success throwing the ball against USC this season. The Trojans 105th in the country against the pass, giving up on average around 250 yards per game. And you look at Oregon, Tez Johnson had a great performance last week. Troy Franklin might be one of the best receivers in all of college football. And then you got to talk about Bo Nix, as well as maybe one of the best quarterbacks in the country as well. I can keep on listing off these things, folks, and I'm going to keep on listing them off when I look at the Ducks. Because when I take a look at Oregon, they are the team that those folks in the top four, which includes two teams from our current beloved Big Ten, when they look at the Oregon Ducks, they don't want to see them in the top four. When I look at teams in the Pac-12, when I look at incoming teams into the Big Ten, Washington has done a great job this season. Washington's probably going to win double-digit games. But when I look at Oregon, that is a complete team. I mentioned where they're at in terms of rushing and passing and the balance on offense. They're a very good team on defense. This is a team in Oregon that when I see them on tape and I see how they're built and Dan Lanning, how he has constructed this team, this is a team this season, in a season that is full of parity, this is a team that can win a national championship. So the Florida States of the world and the Michigans and the Ohio States and the Georgias, you better keep on winning. And you better keep the status quo, because I don't know if you want a one-loss Pac-12 champion Oregon Ducks in the college football playoff. They might be doing their best to try to maybe keep them to the side and maybe keep them out of the college football playoff right now. I believe that strongly in the Oregon Ducks. What a boost that would be. Okay, you'd love, from a Big Ten perspective, you'd love to see a Michigan or an Ohio State go out and win a national championship. But I think what would be just as good is to see someone like Oregon win a national championship, an incoming member, of course. When I look at this matchup from a USC perspective, and what's the chance to go on the road? What do they have to do to go on the road and come out with the victory? You need to go up and down and up and down. You need to make this a track-a-mate. Because this defense, they're not going to slow down. They're probably not going to keep Oregon below 30 or 35 points in this game. You have to outscore the Ducks. If there is a path to victory throughout the beautiful Pacific Northwest, if there is a path around Crater Lake, Oregon, if there is a path to victory for the USC Trojans up there in Oregon, it's got to be just slinging it around and moving the ball like you did on the Washington Huskies and scoring points. But you can't have the fourth quarter in this game that you did against Washington, because it's kind of got to be flip-flop. You got to have a similar game to Washington where you got to go up and down, you got to score, you got to know your defense is probably not going to get a lot of stops, but where thing flip-flop was Washington was a team that kept on scoring. They got a few stops late when USC kind of puttered out throughout this. So USC's got to flip-flop that. Hey, Oregon might put up 42 points, but you got to put up 50. Right? It just seems for USC to have a shot to win this game, it seems like they got to score at least 45 in this one. And you better hope that that defense gets lucky, maybe forces a few turnovers. Who knows what happens? You get a few plays in there that creates an opportunity where Oregon doesn't score. You hold them to maybe 42. You hold them to just 6 touchdowns. But maybe you score enough on the road to be able to get the win. I don't know if that's going to happen, because I think Oregon's got a much better defense than the Washington Huskies do in this game. Oregon, I think this is fairly simple. You can't allow USC to really go out, and I think where USC had success last week against Washington, they were able to get the run game going a little bit. Austin Jones, of course, no Marshawn Lloyd last week for the Trojans. So if you can try to make them one-dimensional, now I get it. Their one dimension is really, really good. Caleb Williams is maybe the best quarterback in the country, the most talented prospect right now. You look forward to some of these NFL quarterbacks that are going to be entering the draft here in 2024. Caleb Williams might be atop the list. And that is a really good one dimension. But when you have balance and when you have a run game, I think that makes things better for USC, even though Lincoln Riley might want to throw it around a lot. The run game really helps USC, and I think that makes them a better offense. If you can take away the run game, it puts that much more pressure on Caleb Williams. There's already a gigantic amount of pressure on Caleb to make plays. He's really feeling the pressure. If you mount even more pressure and make him make every single play, you got to think that creates an advantage for the Oregon Ducks, because you see him scrambling the ball's kind of hanging out here. You've seen in the past this season that when those types of circumstances happen, turnovers can possibly happen as well for the USC Trojans. So you got to think in USC, when you roll out and Caleb is creating plays, try to avoid Kyrie Jackson. He's a guy that can certainly step up and make some plays on defense for the Oregon Ducks in this game. This seems like a game where Oregon is the better team. Maybe it'll go back and forth in the first half, but then maybe the Ducks will pull away late. I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think is going to happen in this Pac-12 After Dark game featuring two future Big Ten programs? I'm excited to see this one. Let me know your thoughts, score predictions, all that stuff in the comments below. I'm Big Ten Ted. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.